Broadcasting from the KMF Collective Studio, it's time for the Keep Moving Forward podcast. Join us every week as we dive into the stories of remarkable current and former athletes that have transitioned into the real world. Now here's your host, Katie Galley.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the 217th episode of the Keep Moving Forward podcast. I'm your host, Katie Galley. Today in the KMF Collective Studio, I have with me Customer Training Manager at the biotech company Intuitive, coach, and former world champion jump roper, Michelle Fongson. How are you doing, Michelle?
I'm good. How are you, Katie?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your story with us today.
Of course, and I appreciate you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited too to dive in, talk about your jump roping career, because I'm pretty sure it's a keep moving forward first, having an awesome jump roper on this show. So I'm really excited to dive in.
Yeah, awesome. I'm happy to be representing jump rope here too.
Heck yeah. So Michelle, just to kind of get the ball rolling a little bit, I wonder, where did you grow up, and how, if at all, was your childhood shaped by athletics?
Good question. So I grew up in California. I was born and raised in Santa Clara, California, which is close to San Jose. And since a young age, I started with jump rope, actually. I mean, I had the normal childhood of going through all the different, tap dance and ballet and a couple other different sports. But I started jump rope classes when I was in first grade. And then I started competing in jump rope when I was in second grade. So from a very young age, I pretty much started and stuck with one sport. And I loved it. So the way that I got into this sport was through something called Jump Heart. I don't know if you've heard of it before. Mm-hmm. But they promote physical fitness to kids through the sport of jump rope. And so they came to my school, and there was a demonstration team that demonstrated what could be done with jump rope. And I just remember being super excited for them to be at our school to participate in Jump Rope for Heart. And then it's kind of like a jogathon. You raise money for, the amount of jumps that you do, and you get sponsored for those jumps that you do. And so I participated in Jump Rope for Heart, and I loved it so much that my mom, she found me classes. And, there's only one jump rope team in Northern California, and that was like 10 minutes from where I lived. So it was perfect. Wow. And so I started the level 1-2 classes when I was younger. And then I started competing in second grade, and I continued all the way through college and beyond.
Wow.
And I would say that it's impacted me in, a whole slew of different ways. I would say that being younger, it taught me confidence in myself and to believe in my abilities, that I could do something and that I could achieve something. I would say that in college, or mainly in high school, I guess you could say that's the next step. It taught me competition and failure and winning and learning from your mistakes, but also learning from your wins. Mm-hmm. And then I would say in college, it taught me how to have fun. I thought that my career was over in college, but I also found a team in San Diego where I went to college, and it taught me that the sport it's for fun, and it's about the people and the community, and the friendships that you make, and the people that you inspire, and the people that inspire you. And then I think that beyond that, after I graduated from college, it taught me leadership. That's when I took over my jump rope team in Santa Clara. My coach retired, and I took over the team. So it's taught me a lot of different things over the year, but as a foundation from being a kid, it really taught me to believe in myself to achieve something.
Yeah. And I love that, because I guess it's in any sport that you can really find when you love it so much and you have that just real passion and drive to be better at it, to be good at it, to just kind of go all in with it. And then it just, everything that you learn through it, you don't even realize it at the time, because you're just doing the thing that you love so much. And then it's not until really after the fact that you can reflect back and realize, wow, all of the things that I learned can apply to literally any manner of my life. It doesn't just exist with that rope in my hand. It doesn't just exist within the confines of that sport.
Exactly. And, I think something else that really rings true for me too is, so I grew up in the Silicon Valley, where it's really competitive, and you have to fight and compete your way to achieve and to be different. And jump rope was kind of an escape for me to, one, achieve something that I never really thought I could do, but also two, just believe in the fact that I could do something and I could be different doing it at the same time, and I could be myself. And that definitely, I think, is a theme throughout my jump rope career and beyond.
Yeah. And so, Michelle, going back to kind of that initial time when you saw Jump Rope for Heart and you kind of saw that exhibition and they came to your school and then you just the next year you're like, all right, I'm going all in. I'm going to do this because it just looks so like so much fun. What was it really about that performance that you saw that really caught your eye? Why did it make you decide this is the sport for me? This is what I want to do?
So it was just so different. I've seen kids play soccer and basketball, and so many of my friends were good at running and, other different sports. And, I came from a volleyball family. And then I also came from a family that also loved tennis, but I didn't really like either of those. Basically all the ball sports wasn't my jam.
Yeah.
And then, so I saw jump rope and, it was so different. It didn't involve a ball. And one of my babysitters too, she also, she did a little bit of jump rope as well on my former team. And so she and I would do it a little bit together when she'd be babysitting me. And I knew that was like something I wanted to do. Those were people that I looked up to.
Yeah.
And, I didn't really decide that jump rope was something I wanted all in until I want to say maybe fourth grade. So it took me a couple years of competition to kind of figure that out. Yeah. I think that deciding factor was when we actually moved from Santa Clara to a town that was about 20 minutes away. And so we would have had to make a, 25-minute trek to jump rope practice 2 times a week, 3 times a week. And so my mom and I, we had to sit down and make the decision of, okay, do you want to continue this or do you not? And so I decided that was something that was going to continue to give me, something normal in my life when, all the things around me were changing because we were moving.
Yeah.
And that was it. Never looked back from there.
I love that. And I mean, too, having that conversation with your mom, kind of putting it in your hands. Like, is it something that you wanted to continue? And of course, you needed the support of your parents and you needed them to help take you to practice. But it was like asking you, Michelle, do you want to keep doing this? And then having that kind of pivotal moment in your own life. And so, Michelle, can you go into a little bit what goes into a jump rope competition? So is it that you have a routine that you stick to? Do you have teammates and you do 4 at a time? Or is it just strictly how many jumps you can do in a certain amount of time? What is the structure of it?
Yeah. What is jump rope? What does that mean? I feel like I have a pretty good spiel for that. So many people have asked me, what is it?
Yeah.
What does it look like? Because you've not really seen it until you've actually seen it and done it too. But the best way I could describe it is there's 2 different categories. You have speed, which is how fast you can go for a certain amount of time. It kind of looks like you're running in place. So you alternating feet, and the judges will count your right foot and they'll double your score. And then there's the other category is freestyle, where freestyles, there's different required elements, and it's more of an artistic thing, but there's also technical elements. So similar to like ice skating, where you've got a technical score and an artistic score. So those are the 2 different categories, but within those categories, you have individual events, pairs events, so 2 people, but then you also have team events. Your team events can be 3 people, 4 people, even up to 5 people. And then there's also group show, which is a large event show. So that includes 12 people or even up to 20 people or more.
Wow.
Yeah. And then amongst those different events, for example, for speed, you've got similar to like track and field, you've got like a relay event. So each person will go for 30 seconds apiece, and each person has the opportunity to accumulate as many jumps as they can within those 30 seconds. And then you switch the next person, switch the next person, switch the next person, and then you get an accumulated score. There's also double Dutch events. So again, one person will go in, accumulate as many jumps as they can in 40 seconds. They'll jump out of the rope, switch to the next person, and so forth. And your transitions have to be seamless, similar to the way that you would toss a baton off. Otherwise, you lose points.
Wow.
And then there's also individual events. So there's like a sprint event, which is 30 seconds for time, or 30 seconds, and then you accumulate as many as you can in 30 seconds, or 3 minutes, which is kind of like our quote unquote endurance event. And then we also compete triple unders. So you do as many triple unders as you can until you miss. And then for freestyle, it's the same kind of idea. You have individual events, you have pairs events where you're doing side by side the same routine, but there's also interaction points that you can get as well. And then there's double Dutch freestyle events. Those are probably one of my favorite events. So that's where you have the turners, the two people on the outside turning for the person that's jumping on the inside, doing all sorts of fun skills and tricks and stuff. And then you switch around, and there's a lot of different ways that you can switch as well.
That sounds super fun. I mean, and there's so many elements to it. Like you did say, it's kind of like track, specifically with the relay, but I mean, it seems like there's just so many within each event. There's so many different things that you can be doing, and everybody has their own role. And so did you take your hand in, did you try all of these different freestyle or like speed, technical rope? You do all of these?
I did all of them. So very rarely in jump rope do you just specialize in one event. Our sport isn't quite there yet, but there definitely are some people that are obvious standouts who are, consistent world champions or champions at specific events. But my goal was to always be a very well-rounded jumper. I loved speed for certain reasons. I loved freestyle for certain reasons. And I was never, I would say, like number one. Well, I would say, I probably was maybe stronger at speed naturally than I was at freestyle. But towards the end of my career, I used to compete in the overall category, kind of like your heptathlon. I would do all the different events, and then they would give you a combined overall score, and you would get ranked off of that.
Yeah. Well, that's so cool, though, that you got to do that, like you said, like the heptathlon, competing in all these events to have that final score. And so, Michelle, then, so you said you went through it and you continued on competing through high school and then into college, found a group to continue with. So when you started to get into high school and then looking forward to college, that next step in your academic athletic career, were there or are there universities that have jump rope teams? What were you looking at as far as a next step for jump rope, or were you looking at that next step?
No, that's a really great question. I think what's crazy is how much the sport has changed since the 90s. So this is a really young sport. I would say that the competitive jump rope scene started in the 80s. I want to say maybe it was 82, maybe 83. So when I started competing, it was, I want to say 96 or so. And so it was only 10 years young when I was competing. So when I got to high school, there wasn't much of, there wasn't YouTube around, there wasn't, Instagram or Snapchat or any of those, online platforms that we could connect with other people from around the world. We had a little bit of Facebook and MySpace, but in terms of connecting with people beyond the high school competition scene, there was no collegiate teams at all. Now there are, though, which is awesome to see. They actually have a collegiate summit that happens every year where all these different colleges, and it's a lot of former jumpers that want to continue jumping. They'll start a club at their school, and then they'll get together once a year to do a summit and a competition and a workshop of some sort where they get to trade ideas and learn from each other. So there wasn't anything of that sort when I was around, but I knew that I wanted to pursue something jump rope beyond high school in my academics. So I went to San Diego State, and I found a local team actually in Coronado called the San Diego Sand Skippers. And then I started helping coach them for a little while. And then I also worked with a team called the Coronado Speed Spinners, and they're the team that I worked a majority with. And that's kind of where I found just the love of the community of the sport. I loved the community to begin with. That's like my second family in Northern California. But when you actually start teaching and giving back to the people in a community that you were part of for, 10, 15 years at that point for me, it brings something different to the table. And that's when I found my love of coaching and teaching.
Yeah. I love that. I like you said, put it in perspective of one, finding that community, but two, being able to give back to the sport that gave you so much and that you love so much. So wanting to be that person for somebody else. And so Michelle, then too, stepping into that coach role, of course, you said you loved it and you just kind of fell into it, but how difficult was it to transition from being an athlete to then being a coach? Were you still competing at the same time, or how did that transition work out?
Oh man, I feel like that transition took I don't know, 10 years maybe.
Yeah.
That took a long time. And you identify so much with who you are, with what you do, right? And what you achieve. And when I graduated from high school, I had already been to 3 world championships. I had already won a world championship. And when you get to that point, at some point, especially when you're so young too, I kind of remember thinking, wow, what do I do next now? What's my next goal now? I didn't quite know what it was. And, I went to school kind of thinking that I was done with it. But then, I wanted to stay active, and part of my life is always just to stay active and to move. And so I found myself picking up the rope more and more. And, but even when I was coaching the team in Coronado, the coach and she was kind of the decade before me. She started competing in probably the 80s, the late 80s. But we started jumping together and having so much fun. And what's great about this sport is you can compete at any age group. And so we kind of practiced alongside of our kids. Not only did we lead by example, right, but then we led them through competitions as well. So I would say for a long time, I played a kind of a player coach role where, I transitioned, and I still had this urge and drive to be better, be stronger, be faster, to push my limits. But then I was also, I found this new passion of working with kids and people, and helping them live up to their potential and believing in themselves. Mm-hmm. So it took a long time. And then finally, I guess you could say, I finally moved back to Northern California after college. And that's when my coach retired. I was pursuing a master's in acupuncture. So I was still pursuing my academics, but, I still couldn't quite break away, from the love and everything that sport has given me and still has given me to this day. And so I was still competing after college. I came back and I went to another world championships with my former team in Northern California. But then my coach, she and I became pretty close because, I was the older adult in the room now, no longer one of the kids that was competing. And we had several conversations, and then she decided that she wanted to give the team to me. And we made the decision that, okay, you're going to retire. I'm going to take it on. This is what I'm going to do because this is what I love to do. It's a sport that I love and I believe in. And still, even the first 2 years of me coaching that competitive team, I had an assistant coach who he was kind of a decade behind me, and he started competing with me a little bit. So I was still in that phase of trying to figure out how I balance still being an athlete myself, but also being a coach and being there for my people and my kids. But then I would say about 3 years in, that's when I finally was like, okay, we're done. And what's funny is, I actually tore my Achilles at that point. Wow. So that's when I actually found CrossFit. And that is literally kind of what made me stop. And, I had to recover for a year. Wow. But that's really where I found how much more I've learned from just coaching instead of coaching and being that player coach. Because I was kind of splitting my time, a little bit, and splitting my energy. So I decided to focus solely on coaching, and that's when I started coaching CrossFit coaching gymnastics and jump rope.
Wow, man, just going all in on the world of coaching then, just figuring it out.
Yeah. It takes a while to figure things out sometimes,
Yeah, really though. And so Michelle, I mean, like you said, going for a couple of years of splitting your time, being that player coach, and because you love the sport still and love to still compete, and having that opportunity, that's got to be challenging to give up, even with the opportunity to start coaching too in the sport that you love. And so then when you did sustain that injury, that Achilles injury, which I can only imagine that getting ankle and Achilles injuries must be fairly common in that sport. So when that did happen, and it kind of, you said it took a year to heal, kind of forcing your hand to be like, okay, is continuing to compete something I really want to continue to do, or is it really going in with coaching what I want to do? So then navigating that transition. So it was a transition going from being an athlete to a coach, being a player coach, and then going from player coach to just being a coach.
Yeah, exactly.
How was that then? I mean, because then it was, okay, you obviously made that decision, but it was also a little bit made for you because of your injury. So how did you navigate that?
It was hard. I had to do a lot of reflection, a lot of soul searching. That's kind of when that ultimate last transition was, when I also found CrossFit. And I think the community and the people around you, like just by talking to people like you, it helps you understand really what's important to you. And, I also had pressure from myself financially, I needed to take care of myself, right? So I needed to figure out whether I was going to continue pursuing an acupuncture career, or if coaching was something that I wanted to go into, but I needed to go all in on something. I was splitting my time between so many different roles and things that I wanted to do, but I learned that I needed to slow down, and literally tearing my Achilles made me slow down, like literally, and made me think about, okay, what is it? Where do I want to spend my time? So I would say not too long after I tore my Achilles, maybe 2 months after I tore my Achilles, I decided to stop pursuing my master's in acupuncture and pursue a full-time coaching career. Kind of a crazy time to make a decision like that, because when you're coaching, especially something physical like jump rope, and you're doing it with one foot, one leg, it's really hard.
Yeah.
But I had to make the decision, and I stuck with it. And it's in moments like that, moments of where you may feel defeated, where you might feel like the whole universe is against you. But it's in moments like that where the decisions you make, it defines who you are. And I think obviously I didn't really see it at the time. At that time I was like, oh my gosh, this is probably the hardest thing I'm ever going to do in my entire life.
Yeah.
But I have to make this decision. So, looking back on it, the decision that I made, it was not an easy one, and it was a hard one. It took a lot of reflection, and it took a long time for me to kind of come around to terms with the fact that perhaps my, athletic career was over. But also, I was so grateful that another chapter of my life was opening, and I was learning more. Like I became a tremendously better coach because I only had one foot and one leg.
Wow.
I had to be good with my words, right?
Yeah.
I had to be able to describe things. I had to learn how to teach audibly and learn how to use, other people to help me visually demonstrate things to people. Or, another part of adult learning principles is kinesthetic, right? How do you teach someone how to do something if I can't get up and put them in the position, right? So I had to really think hard about how to do it. So it definitely made me a tremendously, I think, better person from that decision, even though it was hard.
Yeah. And I think you just hit the nail right on the head. Just because a decision is really, really challenging doesn't mean it's not the right one. And so it's most of the time the best decision for you is going to be the hardest one to make. And then, though, and like you said, being injured is actually something that really prompted you to become a better coach, because you're right. You have to use verbal cues and tactile cues and all these different cues in order to really help coach someone if you can't just demonstrate it, because you could be the best demonstrator demonstrator. You could be the best jump roper in the world, but if you can't tell someone who is struggling, you can't help them fix their own problems, then it's not, what is the coach, what is the role you're playing as a coach. And so, Michelle, too, just to backtrack just a little bit, because you making that decision to go all in with coaching, why acupuncture? Why was that something that you were getting a master's in?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So my undergraduate degree is in kinesiology.
Okay.
And my emphasis was in athletic training. And so I knew that I wanted to work with people in some capacity.
Yeah.
And I also knew I wanted to do it in a different way. So my idea was I was going to combine Western and Eastern medicine to treat a person more holistically. I really truly believe that, we're not just an injured body part. There's so much more to an injury than just a torn Achilles or, a rolled ankle or, a subleft shoulder. Like there's mental things going on too, right? A lot of other things. And I saw acupuncture as a way of treating that whole person. And I think in a sense, that's kind of how I coach people too. Like, I'm not just looking to improve you to make your snatch better. I'm looking for you to improve your snatch, but also I'm here to challenge the way that you think and why the way you think, why you do something the way you do something, and to inspire you to think in a different way. And I think that's why I pursued acupuncture, but that also is why I pursued coaching, right?
Right.
And, I took it in a different direction.
And that seems to be a very true trend throughout your entire life. I mean, seeing things and seeing things in a different light and then wanting to approach things differently. Jump rope is such a different and unique sport, but wanting to get involved with it, going on this unique path of pursuing medicines and bringing them together in a different way through acupuncture. It's just all these things. It's really kind of a neat little thread that just stays true throughout your whole journey so far.
You are right. Yeah, I think if you were to ask my mom or dad to describe that would be definitely to describe me. That would definitely be a theme. Yeah. They know that anything I do is always going to be different, and so in some way, it's going to be opposite of what they do.
I like that. And, at least, it's different, but they know it's coming because Michelle's going to do something different.
Yep, exactly.
I love that. So, Michelle, then coming off of that, going all in with coaching, deciding to stop your master's in acupuncture and pursue, again, helping people in this different way, but now with coaching and in the realm still of jump rope. But then you said, too, this was about the time that CrossFit started to come into the picture. And so how did you find the sport of CrossFit? Why did you decide you wanted to start coaching? What was that part of your journey? Yeah.
So I found CrossFit probably about in 2013, I believe, 2012, 2013. And I found it because I knew about it when I was in college. That's kind of when it started, I think, gaining a little bit of kind of press and lots of people started getting into it. And then I moved up to Northern California. And then obviously that's kind of where it started in Santa Cruz. Yeah. So there were a lot of CrossFit gyms around me. And, me being the athlete that I am, and I was still kind of competing at that time around in 2009-ish, 10-ish. I've always been looking for ways to get better, get stronger, get faster, get better at whatever I'm doing. And so I was still competing at jump rope in 2012, and I wanted to dominate that year. I moved up to another age group. I think it was in the 25 to 29 age group, or 21 to 29 age group. And I wanted to dominate it. So I found CrossFit for it. And I actually started at Jason Cleepa's gym in NorCal CrossFit. And I pursued that because I saw it as a way of, one, getting stronger, but also, two, getting faster at speed, especially, and giving me an overall stronger foundation. So I pursued that, and I was doing that for maybe 2 or 3 years until I started coaching it. And that's also when I decided that I was going to pursue a full-time coaching career. And I quit acupuncture school, and then I pursued coaching CrossFit as well. Someone saw a little bit. So I also moved gyms to a town called Los Gatos CrossFit Cadence. And the head coach owner there was like, I think you're a born coach. do you want to coach? Like, do you want to do that? And I'm like, I think so. I don't know. I feel like I think I'm kind of young into the sport to really, feel like I can teach somebody to do it. But then the more that I thought about it, the more I was like, of course I could do this. Like, I just need to learn more about and what I'm doing. And I'm already catching on, all these different movements and getting good at them. So now I just need to learn how to teach it and how to articulate what needs to be done, how a class is structured. And that's where it took off from there.
Man. And so Michelle, like you said, you had that moment of doubt where like, should I do this? I'm kind of young to the sport. But then of course you knew that innately, like, I'm a coach and I want to help people in this different way. This is a different sport. Like, let's do it again. Let's just go all in again.
Let's do it again.
Let's figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I guess too, this might be kind of a 2-part question, because did you have the experience, like, had you already known about Olympic lifting and the different elements that go into CrossFit, like gymnastics, the endurance training, obviously the jump roping portion, the double unders, but as far as your training and coaching that you do or did in the jump roping world, did that translate over at all? Of course, the the bearings, like the skeleton of how you coach, yes, of course, how you relate to people, but as far as like the movements you were doing, was that something that like Olympic lifting, is that something you use to train for jump roping too?
So a little bit, but honestly, a lot of jump rope training is very calisthenic, I guess you could say, body weight based.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I didn't, and my coach, my original coach, she was a personal trainer, so she taught us as kids a little bit about weightlifting, and we used little dumbbells here or there, and we used Bosu balls to like balance and all that stuff, but I did not know anything about Olympic lifting or powerlifting at all. I mean, if you asked me the difference between what Olympic lifting and powerlifting was, I couldn't tell you the difference. The extent and my knowledge of strength training was actually from college, from my kinesiology background. So I did have a little bit of understanding of, I think they were talking a lot about periodization at that time, and what strength programs look like, how some people structure them, or cycles that people go through. So I had an understanding. But when it came to knowing like the actual CrossFit movements, I had no idea, no idea. So I learned it all from scratch. But I mean, to your point though, I have this scheme of kind of going all in with things in my life. And when I choose something, I choose it and I do it. Like for example, in college, I learned how to surf. I'm a California born and raised girl, but when I was younger, I did not want to go to the beach. I didn't want to get sand in my shoes. I was that person. And, I did not like the fact that I couldn't see the bottom of the ocean. It scared me. But then in college, I made this decision, and, I had a whole bunch of friends, obviously, that surfed because San Diego State's pretty close to the beach. And so one day, I went out surfing with them, and it sucked. I thought I was going to drown. But then, I did it a couple more times with them, and I, started having a little bit more fun. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to get good at this. I want to learn how to do this. So I bought a board, and I surfed for pretty much 365 days straight, like a year straight.
Wow.
And I figured it out, and I learned it. And because of that, I can kind of teach it. I'm not great at teaching it. You can ask my husband. I'm not great at teaching it, but but still, I can do it, and I can do it well, and I can show people how to do things, right? And it's the same with CrossFit. The moment that I kind of stepped in the door for my on-ramp classes, I learned some of these movements, and the more that I did them, the more almost addicting it was to learn. It's kind of like that athlete mentality of trying to just always pushing yourself to be better and to learn more and to know more. So the moment that I started learning those movements, I just nerded out. I was YouTubing all over the place, all these different movements and how to teach them, how to break them down, what they're called. I mean, I remember not knowing the difference between like a clean and a snatch, or what an overhead squat was versus a front squat. They were all squats to me.
Yeah.
But I had to do some research to figure it out.
Yeah. Man, I love that. And two, relating it back to one, who you are as an athlete, where you found this thing where kind of being afraid of surfing and not like it's just the unknown, but then deciding, okay, nope, I'm going to do this. I'm going to overcome this. I'm going to figure it out. Then doing it every single day until you did. And then now being able to say, okay, well, I can help someone who also has the same hiccup. Not like you said, not claiming to be an expert or the best surf coach ever, but it's something because you overcame it, you can draw on your own experiences and authentically lead someone in a positive direction with what you've done. And same thing, like you just said, in CrossFit, it's so cool that you've done that and just went all in. I love what you said, when you choose something, you choose it and then you just go all in with it, because you're not just gonna kind of be wishy-washy about it. You're choosing it as that thing that you want to go all in with.
Exactly.
I love that. And so, Michelle, from there, I mean, so finding CrossFit, really falling in love with that whole learning aspect of, okay, wanting to be better and not just being a better athlete, but being better as far as understanding movements and being able to, again, help somebody on their own journey. So taking that next step forward in CrossFit, did you go after like all the different certifications you can go after? Did you just all of a sudden just jump in and start coaching? What was the next phase in your journey like?
Yeah. So I actually just immediately started coaching because my head coach at the gym, he was like, you're good. Like, just start coaching. Like, you know what coaching is. You know these movements. He's like, just start it and then you'll take your L1. So I took my L1 not too soon after I started coaching. And then I also took the CrossFit Kids certification. Yeah. If I had more money and wasn't a starving coach, I would have probably taken a lot more certifications.
Yep.
And if I had been doing it longer, I probably would have done that as well. But those were the two big ones that I took. So CrossFit and then CrossFit Kids, because I started our CrossFit Kids program at our gym as well.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And so did you, I imagine, so this was going on, you pursued CrossFit Kids in your level 1, you were still coaching jump rope at this time, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I was also coaching recreational gymnastics as well.
Oh, how did you fall into that?
Yeah. So I think, again, right around when I came back from college, I was just like, okay, I got to do something. I don't know what, but I got to do something. So I started getting my hands into everything. So I started doing adult gymnastics on like Tuesday and Thursday nights.
Oh, wow.
And so when I wanted to get better at it. And part of jump rope, competitive jump rope, is you do gymnastics with the jump ropes in your hands.
Oh, wow.
So I had a small like tumbling foundation, but I wanted to know more about it. So I started taking adult gymnastics classes while I was at acupuncture school, while I was coaching jump rope, while I was coaching CrossFit. So I did all these things, and then I found myself coaching recreational gymnastics as well.
Wow.
All the things.
I love that. Yeah. So
I did a lot.
Is that a thing? So an adult, you started taking an adult class and then you started coaching after that?
Yep. I coached. Yeah, and I coached little kids. I mean, I coached like I want to say 3-year-olds all the way through 10 to 12-year-old kids. I never coached like teen at all, but I at least had like the foundations, and I knew like the foundations of each apparatus.
Wow. Man, that's so cool. I honestly had no idea there was such thing as an adult gymnastics class. That's I love
there's a lot of gyms that do adult gymnastics. Yeah. You just have to kind of search for them.
Yeah.
At least they're really big in California. I haven't really looked here yet, though.
Yeah. But it's that's such a great thing to do. I mean, one, obviously knowing from the world of CrossFit, that's kind of like a thing that you do. They implement gymnastics and weightlifting and metabolic conditioning, which is so cool. And I know that's a draw to CrossFit. But the gymnastics thing is such a funny thing to get involved in, especially at an older age. If you didn't do it when you're younger, it's like a weird thing to start doing when you're older. So that's so cool. I love that exists, adult gymnastics classes.
No, it's great because you get all the different levels. Like you have. There were people in my class that were obviously former gymnasts, and they were very good. They could do all the press handstands, and they could do round off, flip flop back taps and stuff.
Yeah.
But then there were some people there that just wanted to get better at moving. Like some people had never been upside down before. Some people have never done a bear crawl or knew what a crab walk was. Some people have never jumped on a trampoline, So you just get everybody in adult gymnastics classes. And that's what's kind of inspiring is you get to see and work with everybody.
Yeah. Wow. That was a really cool little tidbit that came out. That's awesome. I love that.
course.
And so then Michelle, so from there, you're coaching just all these different things, then going on with CrossFit, and then helping with rec gymnastics, and then still doing your, the sport that really has your heart that you love, jump rope. And so bringing all of these together, how did you, I guess, successfully be able to split your time? How were you able to do that between all three different sports, coaching all these things? Of course, you said you went all in with coaching, but coaching three different, I guess, disciplines all at once. That's got to be incredibly challenging.
It was hard. It was a lot of time management and juggling of schedules. It stretched me. It stretched me in a lot of different ways. I worked some long days. I mean, when you're coaching, kids especially too, you're usually coaching them after school, right? So that kind of filled my 2 p.m. to kind of 8 or 9 p.m. time period. And then during the day, I kind of had more free, but then I was the morning CrossFit coach. So my days would usually start at 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m., and then I would coach all the way through the evening. And it was exhausting.
Yeah.
It definitely was. That was kind of my hustle hard kind of period in life, I want to say. It wasn't necessarily hustle smart, but it was definitely a hustle hard period. And I learned a lot from that. And I would say I probably almost got to a point of burnout. But I think every stage in life you learn something a little different. And something I learned from there was just to learn as much as humanly possible and to try to grow from that in some way.
Absolutely. And I love that, having that perspective of you were getting kind of almost to the point of burnt out, hustling hard, just kind of learning all these different things and then preparing you for whatever it was going to be next. So just like you did with athletics, really not knowing what you were going to be prepared to do next, but knowing that being an athlete just helped prepare you innately for that.
Yeah.
And so
I'm going to do my best, and exactly, I'm going to do my best at what I'm doing right now. And, sometimes the future may not be known, or my goals may not always be clear in what I'm, striving towards, but it taught me to really be present with what I'm doing and understand why I'm doing something.
Yes, I love that. And so, Michelle, in that time, then, like you said, you might have reached the point of burning out, but you were still, it was just packing your schedule and doing the things that you loved. But then on the back end now, how did you ultimately become what you are today as a customer training manager at Intuitive?
Yeah. So, when you do things that you love, time passes by pretty quickly. And, I was doing exactly what I wanted to do. I was ready to become a full-time coach and make that career, a career for myself. And, I wasn't sure if it was going to be in 3 different skill sets, CrossFit, gymnastics, and jump rope. But I knew at that time I needed to support myself financially in some way. So I had to hustle, right?
Yeah.
But in that time, you meet a lot of different people when you coach. I met a lot of different adults from coaching CrossFit, and kids and parents. Same with kids and parents with gymnastics and jump rope. And in CrossFit, I coach someone that works at my company and the company I currently work at, which is called Intuitive. And she disappeared for a couple months, and then she came back, and I started talking to her after one of our classes. It's like, hey, how's it going? I haven't seen you in a while. Everything okay? And she's like, oh yeah, I know. You never understand. So there's this part of our company called CAST, and it's basically a big kind of onboarding class. And so she was in charge of this class, and it takes up a lot of your time. And so she took a break for that, and then she came back. And so we just started talking about her work a little bit more, how it was going. And towards the end of our conversation, she's like, there's this position that we have open that I think you'd be really, really good at. Would you be interested? What are your goals? What are you looking forward to? I'm telling her, well, yeah, I feel like I'm kind of doing that right now.
Yeah.
But, I'm always open. Tell me a little bit more about what this company is and what you guys do. And, maybe, this could be a transitional point for me. So we sat down and we had coffee one day, not too soon after that. She talked to me about the company, their mission, what they stood for, what it was like, the culture, what it was like there to work there. And I was pretty instantly, I want to say, almost kind of hooked and bought in. I think one of the things that stood out to me were community, and that this company is about the patients first. That's one of our mottos. And a lot of my life has been about creating change and making a difference. And this company is exactly that. This company is at the forefront of what they do. They're 10, 20 years ahead of any of their competitors. And it was a company that's also in the Bay Area, so I didn't have to move. And I love California. So I went in to meet the team, my current team, or my team that was back in California. And I went through a couple of rounds of interviews, and I was hired a week later. Wow. And that was it. It happened really fast. And, I've interviewed so many people in my time at this company now. And the one thing that I tell everybody is that I would have never have left my life before this for anything less than what I have right now with this company. Wow. The people are so passionate about what they do. What we do makes a difference in patients' lives. Like, I know that I have trained so many hundreds. I've trained, I think, almost 750 to maybe 900 surgeons in my 3 years that I was a customer trainer. And those surgeons affect thousands of people's lives. So I know that I have pretty much almost directly had a hand in changing people's lives on a really large scale. And that's something that inspires me. And that's something that I would have never have left my job before, and my jump rope career and my coaching career before this for anything less than what I have right now.
Wow. And that's, I mean, that's powerful to have that, to be, I mean, because it's true, you were living your actual dream out. And so the idea that you would leave that behind, it had to be for something greater. It had to be for something in pursuit of the mission you were still on in your life, but for that much greater, so you could impact that many more people. And so, Michelle, then what is a customer training manager, what you are today?
Yeah. So I was a customer trainer for 3 years. And so what I did was I worked with our customer base, which was surgeons and sometimes some OR staff as well. And I would teach them how to use our product, which is called the Da Vinci. And it's a robot that enables surgeons to do minimally invasive surgeries, and it enables them to do it better than they've ever been able to do before. They can see better. There's tremor filtration. So if you have like shaky hands, like it filters out the tremor so that you can perform very fine and precise movements inside your patients. So essentially, your patients will recover and should recover faster from these surgeries. So I taught surgeons how to use that modality for 3 years and loved it, because that is basically what I did before, was coach and teach people and inspire people, right? Yeah. And so now what I do is I manage a group of customer trainers. So I have 6 customer trainers that work for me up in a lab up in North Carolina, Georgia.
Man, that's cool. I mean, it's, like you said, you're still applying everything you learned as a coach, but it's just in a different capacity.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be in the world of athletics for you to be a coach. That's that's a really cool perspective to have. And so then, Michelle, though, I mean, you said intuitive initially, you were in California, so you didn't have to move, but now you are in Georgia. So how did you end up down here?
So I mean, just like any kind of stage in my life, I think there's always a kind of a jumping off point and a decision that has to be made where you've got to go all in. And so, I love California, and I'm sure maybe one day I will end up back there with a family. But there was an opportunity that presented itself that I couldn't turn down, and that was becoming a manager. I have worked so hard in my life with people to follow what I love doing, and to also give back what has been given to me in a lot of different ways. And so I had been trying to find my path through this company and figure out where I really belong. I knew it was in education, but I didn't quite know where that was. And so I did an interview for another position, and my now manager, he was like, Michelle, I don't know if this is the right position for you, but I know we're going to find it for you. And so our company is growing very, very quickly. And the lab that we have here in Georgia is the largest lab in the world. We have 12 customer trainers here, but then all of our other labs have 1 to 5 people at their labs. So this is a very large scale lab. And so they needed not just one customer training managers, but 2. There was one person that was handling it for a while, but we learned that it really needed 2 people to manage 12 people.
Yeah.
So my manager, the one that interviewed me, he's like, okay, this was actually right after I got married. He gave me a call and he was like, look, I know you got a lot on your plate right now. You got a lot to think about. You just got married. You're about to go on your honeymoon, but I have a proposition for you. Just think about it, And I was like, okay, I have a feeling this is one of those conversations where I'm pretty sure I know this is going to be a turning point in my life. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to listen. So he was like, all right, look, so we need 2 managers in Georgia. And I think you're the person to do it. And I wouldn't want to do it with anybody but you. Wow. And I think your skill set is here, and I think you're a leader, and I want to develop you. And I think this is the perfect opportunity for it. And he's like, it'd be a big move, right? You'd be moving across the country. You're not going to be with your family. There's a lot of different things. But he's like, this is the job for you. So, of course, I went on my honeymoon. We thought about it, talked about it together, my husband and I, and we decided that this is an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. So the amount of things that I'm learning and the mentorship that I'm getting and coaching that I'm getting is more than I could have ever asked for. When you work for yourself, me being a coach of jump rope by myself with no mentor, you learn a little bit. You make some changes and you take a couple things away here or there. But when you have somebody who's your advocate, who's your mentor, who's looking out for you, who's giving you feedback, who's pushing you to be the best that you can be, it's crazy the amount of progress that you can make in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, man, that really is such a good point. And I mean, it's amazing to one, trust your mentor who the kind of like leads you and be like, you be willing to say, okay, I want to continue on in this career. I want to continue to help people in an even greater capacity. And so to be able to, one, step out of your comfort zone, move away from California, and in already such a hugely transitional point in your life. But I think too, again, just looking back on the life that you led, it's just something that you do. You're willing to make those sacrifices, take those risks in pursuit of that one true mission that you're on, which is to help people in different ways. And so that's a really amazing trend that you have. And it's truly authentic because you've done it since you were in 2nd grade. So.
You're right. Yeah, it is definitely a theme. Yeah, for sure.
I love that, Michelle. And so now looking forward, I mean, you obviously made that transition. You're in Georgia now, and looking forward, 1, in your professional career, and then 2, in your personal life. I know you have some big changes coming up soon. But for you, what do you see next on the horizon? Do you see yourself continuing to grow here? Are there, just as far as the company goes, Intuitive, what's next for you?
Yeah, I always think about what's next and what I could be doing for the next step. And I think right now, obviously, it's growing a baby and a human inside of me.
Yes, that's important.
And becoming a mom. So that's going to be one big one.
Yeah.
But 2, what my focus has really been in the past year is learning how to be a really good leader and a leader of people, and how to be a leader that's authentic to who Michelle is, to who I am. I've always been actually that shy girl. Like when I was little, I was that little girl in the class that would never raise her hand, that would never talk. I actually went home last year for Christmas, and I found one of my old report cards. I got an A- in science, but the comment was, Michelle needs to participate more in class. That was me. Okay, that was me. And, so right now my focus is figuring out how to be authentic to who I am, but leading people, because, I have a story to tell, and I have been through so much in my life of changes and transitions. And I've also had a lot of mentors and teachers and so many inspiring people that have inspired me to be where I am today and be the person that I am today. So I want to learn how to be a better leader for people because I have had so many good leaders in my life. So that's definitely my focus. Who knows where that's going to take me? But I think that's kind of how I set goals is, I don't necessarily know where I'm going to end up, where I'm going to be, but by focusing on something that is meaningful, like being a good leader and being a good person for others and leading by example, having integrity, inspiring and driving people forward. By doing things like that, as you can kind of see, one thing always kind of naturally leads to another thing. For me, when I follow that passion of mine.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a good point because I think it can be so easy to get fixated. You set a goal, and especially as an athlete, you're like, okay, I'm going to achieve this goal, and this is exactly how I'm going to do it. But then now you can be able to reflect and say, okay, I have this mission. This is my true north that guides me. But what that journey looks like, what that path is going to take, I don't know. But like you said, it's being willing to walk it regardless because it's and those doors are going to keep opening. It's just a matter of, am I going to walk through them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so, Michelle, I mean, reflecting back on this honestly remarkable life that you've led, and I truly love how authentic and real you've been ever since you were young. I mean, just staying true to that path and knowing your mission, knowing what you wanted to do, even when you maybe couldn't even define it. It's just something you were doing. Living in it now and looking forward, knowing that of course you're gonna continue to achieve these goals that you set out to do. I just have one final question that I ask all of my interviewees. What do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, that is a really good question. I've thought about, I think about this from time to time, like, what do I want to be remembered for? And, it changes, I would say, depending on, if you would have asked me this when I was, 6 years old versus, 18 versus 25 versus now.
Yeah.
But right now, what's interesting is I just went through a manager leadership development program at my company. And one of the things that we did, one of the exercises we did was coming up with your leadership values. And if you were to lead a team, what would you want them to see you as a leader? And I think this also kind of rings true for what I kind of want to be known for. And I brought it down to like a little acronym, TI. T-I with two I's, so a double I and E. So T stands for teaching. I stands for inspiration. The second I stands for impact or influential. And then the last E stands for empowering. And I think that speaks true to a lot of how I try to do things and why I do things the way I do. I think teachers are really impactful to everyone's life in some way, shape, or form. I think you could probably remember a specific teacher who impacted you in a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think that also is why I've had the two I's of being influential and inspiring. I always think of people who inspire me and who influence me and who've made a difference in my life. And I hope that I can do that for someone else as well. And then the last E for empowering, I think that's, whatever I do, I want to make sure that I'm empowering the other person to do something for themselves and authentically in the way that they want to do it for themselves, in the way that's true to them. And I think all of this should come from a place, and I would hope people would know me for that it comes from a very genuinely caring place, that I just care about people and I care about making a difference. And the way that I'm going to do it is through teaching, influencing, and inspiring and empowering people.
Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more about our guest, check out the show notes at keepmovingforward.us. While you're there, go ahead and subscribe to our newsletter to stay up to date on all things coming out of the KMF Collective Studio. Always remember, you can beat the odds and go the distance if only you keep moving forward.